notable in the Arizona Republic and the Denver Post, my hometown, where the newspaper staff won a Pulitzer Prize for the coverage of the Columbine massacres. He still researches and presents classes on subjects that intrigue him. This is a very intriguing message. His presentation will cover a large part of classes he teaches. He says he won't keep us here for 4 hours, but he has enough information for 4 hours of classes that he teaches on Ollie. So would you please welcome Gary Olson. Gary.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the introduction. As noted, I'm a retired journalist, and I like to research things that catch my attention. I started this particular presentation in 1999, the 20th anniversary of Columbine. So I presented this a year ago at Ollie, so some of these stats are going to be a little out of date, and the grim reality is that however bad these statistics appear to you, they've gotten worse since. And we're on course for record bloodshed in this country this year. So we're going to go through a presentation here about all kinds of statistics about gun violence in this country. We finally have statistics about gun violence in this country. The reason why we didn't have statistics is because Congress, under pressure from the NRA, passed a law in 1996 that forbade the Centers for Disease Control from applying funds to study gun violence. That law has gone away, and we now have lots of statistics. Since the 90s, gathering of statistics about gun violence pretty much fell to educational institutions and the news media. In 2021, the Gun Violence Archive had tallied almost 49,000 gun deaths in the United States. That's 3,500 more than previous year. Over 23,000 homicides and 25,000 suicides. It's even worse this year. More than 38,000 people were injured. There are more than 687 mass shootings. We're going to beat that record this year. We're on a horrible pace. 2021 Gun Violence Archive, not a governmental operation. It has fallen to other organizations to tally this. They've tallied 49,000 gun violence deaths in the United States. There were more than 350 police officers were killed or injured, and that was just in 2021. Guns are the leading cause of death amongst children and teens as of 2020. Children between 1 and 19 in the United States, more than car crashes, drug overdoses, cancer. This is compiled by the New England Journal of Medicine. 14,000 children and teens were killed in gun violence in 2021. 3,300 were injured. 1,230 shooting incidents were considered defensive use of weapons. Almost 2,000 were unintentional shootings. Kids getting guns, shooting each other. 580 were murder-suicides. The Centers for Disease Control again compiles statistics for U.S. gun violence. Every day in the United States, 316 people are shot. 106 people are shot and killed. 95 are intentionally shot by someone else and survive. 39 are murdered. That's daily. 64 die from gun suicide. That's a bigger problem than anybody understands in this country. The mass shootings catch a lot of attention. A lot more people off themselves. 10 survived their own attempted suicide. 1 is killed unintentionally, 90 are shot unintentionally and survive. Every day, 22 children and teens are shot. 5 die from gun violence. 2 of them are murdered. 17 children and teens survive. School shootings during the last school year. This was 2020. Between August 1st and May 31st, there were 193 gunfire incidents at schools, more than doubling the total of the previous year. Most shootings were perpetrated by a student or former student at the school where the incident occurred. Skip that. Washington Post catalogs police shootings. 917 people were shot dead by police as of 2020. More than 5,000 were killed by police since the Post survey began in 2015. The rate of police killings remain remarkably consistent at about 1,000 a year. Black Americans are killed more frequently. No surprise there. A police department in suburban Detroit drew a lot of attention 2 summers ago when it was learned that officers used pictures of black men holding guns for target practice. Bowling Green University compiles statistics as well, and they reported in 2021 that 21 police officers in the United States were charged with murder or manslaughter resulting from an on-duty shooting, the highest in a single year. It's been increasing from 7 back in 2017. The result of all this was that of the 155 officers charged with murder or manslaughter, since 2005, only 1/3 resulted in a conviction of some crime. 1/3 did not. The rest of cases are still pending. And a law enforcement analyst says the public is asking for more accountability. Washington Post found that per million individuals, these many are shot to death. 37 blacks, 28 Hispanics, 18 whites. Majority are young males, 20 to 39. Police killings occur everywhere in the United States. National Academy of Sciences makes predictions about groups of 100,000 men and boys who will be killed by police during their lifetimes. 100 blacks, 82 Native Americans, 53 Hispanics, 39 whites. Women have much less risk of being shot and killed by police, but blacks and Native Americans have the highest risk amongst women. On the other hand, the FBI reports 73 law enforcement officers died in felonious killings in the line of duty in 2021. That year marks the highest total recorded by the agency since 1995. The state with the highest gun-related mortality, this is from the CDC now, the state with the highest gun-related mortality rate as of 2020 was Mississippi with 28.6 deaths per 100,000 population. In contrast, Hawaii only had 3.4. Arizona's rate was 15.5, right in the middle. The state with the most gun-related deaths, Texas, 4,100 plus. State with the fewest, Rhode Island with 48. We're right in the middle, 1,100 back in 2020. Why is this? Again, from the CDC. Note that where there are more guns, there are more gun deaths. The states with the most gun deaths per 100,000 and their gun ownership per 100,000 are as follows. The highest gun deaths versus gun ownership, Mississippi. States with pretty lax gun laws. And you can see on the right the ownership. Houses with guns. Why at the lowest? 3.4. And only 8.8% of live in a household with a gun. And it goes up from there. States with more rigorous gun regulations. Urban homicides from the Council on Criminal Justice, 5% increase in 2021 over 2020 in 22 major cities. We're talking about urban homicides now. 44% increase over the previous year, a 44% increase. Some of the cities that saw murder rates rise were St. Petersburg, Florida, 100% increase. Austin, Texas, Los Angeles, and Philadelphia even. Heartening news, some cities saw decreases. Notice that the bottom was Phoenix. More than 2/3 of the country's 40 most populous cities saw more homicides last year than in 2020. 10 of those cities reported more homicides in 2021 than any other year on record. Cities with the highest gun homicide rates in 2020 were all in states with lax gun laws: Mississippi, Indiana, Missouri, Louisiana, Tennessee. Despite the recent rise in homicide rates, they're still far below their levels in the 1980s and 1990s. We have made progress in that area. Republicans are likely to say there's a crime problem. Democrats are likely to say there's a gun problem. Skipping all these videos. Okay, ownership. A 2018 small arms survey reported that there are more than 1 billion small arms distributed globally, of which 857 million, or 85%, are in civilian hands. U.S. civilians alone account for 393 million guns, almost half the guns that are in the world in civilian hands. World's armed forces control 133 million small arms, 13% of the global total. Russia, People's Republic of China, no surprise there. That's still only 1/3 of the civilian gun ownership in the U.S. Law enforcement agencies control about 23 million guns of the global total. Estimates put production of firearm cartridges at 10 to 14 billion per year, according to Oxfam, a British organization. That's 27 to 38 million a day. Gun sales in the United States have steadily risen in this millennium. Spikes often occur after mass shootings, especially the Sandy Hook school shooting in 2012, that big spike on the right there. The biggest spike in gun sales occurs when at the beginning of the recent pandemic. You see the big spike on the right there. I don't know. I don't remember this being in the news, but the rationale was the recent pandemic. There was fear that COVID lockdowns would usher in new gun controls, accompanied by a breakdown of social order. Skip that. Okay. New demographics. Traditionally, guns are bought by white males, but a gun sales surge from 2019 through 2021 showed that among buyers, half were female, a fifth were black, and a fifth were Hispanic. Reason? Personal safety. An average of 70 women are killed by an intimate partner with a firearm every month, according to the CDC. I like this quote from the researcher from Everytown for gun safety. Only in the United States is someone shot and injured or killed every 17 hours in a road rage incident. That's kind of daunting. Between 2016 and 19, fewer than 300 people were either hurt or killed in a road rage shooting. 2021, more than 500. Pop quiz. Where was the first drive-by shooting? Drive-by fatality shooting? LA?
No.
Nope.
Oklahoma?
Where?
Florida. Washington.
Phoenix?
Yeah.
Oh.
The first one. Yeah. Here's a daunting kind of situation. There was more than 1 million opportunities for someone to buy a gun from a licensed dealer without a completed background check in 20 and 21, according to the FBI. Due to tight deadlines, missing records, the FBI completed only a quarter of those delayed background checks. And that's probably light. Of those, 11,564 could buy guns before their checks could be completed or denied. It's probably an undercount. 19 states do their own background checks. Gun ownership tends to fluctuate based on the political party in power. Since the current administration took power, gun background checks have shown a steady decline. Okay, the state of Arizona does not require citizens to register their firearms. Also prohibits local jurisdictions, like counties and cities, from requiring licensing or registration of firearms. Arizona gun laws generally permit adults 21 and older to carry loaded handguns in a vehicle. It does not matter whether they are concealed or not. Arizona does not require individuals to purchase a permit or register their firearms. There are no background checks for private gun sales. Arizona does not require individuals to purchase a permit or register their... Open carry is legal in Arizona if a person's 18 and older. Arizona is permitless carry or constitutional carry. No permit is required to carry an unchambered concealed firearm if you're 21 or older. It is illegal to give or sell to anyone under the age of 18 any firearm, ammunition, or toy gun that may discharge explosives. Semi-automatic assault-style weapons are legal in Arizona. It's unlawful to recklessly handle, display, or discharge a firearm with the intent to disturb the peace and quiet of the neighborhood, family, or person, except if you are defending yourself. General property owners in Arizona are not allowed by law to employ deadly force, i.e. guns, in protecting their properties from trespassers. Arizona does not have an explicitly titled stand your ground law. The laws do allow citizens to defend themselves. In Arizona, rural households are more likely to own a firearm than urban households, 46% versus 19%. Those 50 or older have the highest gun ownership rate at 33%. There are an estimated 178,000 guns among the population of 7.5 million. Arizona is tied for having the second highest number of people shot in road rage shootings, 33 injuries and deaths in 2020. Other states with the highest rates are New Mexico, Texas, Wisconsin for some reason, and Tennessee. Tucson has a love-hate relationship with guns. A gun attack victim herself, Representative Gabby Giffords, told the New York Times in 2011 she had a Glock 9mm pistol and I'm a pretty good shot. Today, she and her husband, Mark Kelly, are outspoken gun control advocates after she was shot the following year. The Tucson Police Department has destroyed 4,800 guns turned in by residents or seized from crime investigations since 2013. That came to an end on a 4-3 city council vote after the state Supreme Court ruled that Tucson was in violation of state law. Defying the ruling would have cost the city $57 million in state funding. There's hope. Tucson last year was allocated $2 million from a recently created $100 million federal fund to reduce gun violence. The prevalence of guns and gun ownership in our country is one of the most contentious aspects of our society. The U.S. by far leads the world in deaths caused by firearms. 72 million Americans report owning at least one gun, citing a need for enhanced personal protection. The figure is probably low because there is no national registry for guns. Americans who own guns often own more than one. Swiss-based Small Arms Survey estimates Americans own 393 million guns. That's 60 million more than there are people in this country. Over the last 20 years, there's been a dramatic shift in gun ownership preferences and behaviors away from rifles owned for hunting or sport shooting and towards handguns purchased for self-defense. With only 4% of the world population, the U.S. by far leads the world in gun ownership. As you can see, that's the top one. The next one is Yemen. These charts are all from a BBC report. And it concerns English-speaking peoples. Only follows the U.S. leads the world in gun-related homicides. A distant second among English-speaking countries is Canada, which has slightly more than half the number of gun deaths. Suicides involving guns account for almost 2/3 of the deaths in the United States. About 1/3 are homicides. An increasing number of U.S. homicides are mass shootings. Without action to curtail it, the rise in public gun violence becomes numbing to the national psyche. You can see how Columbine on the bottom and up to the Las Vegas shooting at the top. We should have stricter gun laws that our government shows little interest in acting. Why? Gun manufacturers and gun rights groups routinely outspend gun control groups in trying to dissuade Congress from acting. Chief among gun rights groups is the National Rifle Association. And we'll talk about a checkered history here. We're going to go through this. It was founded in 1871 by Civil War veterans. The stated goal was to promote and encourage rifle shooting on a scientific basis, whatever that means. NRA's interest in promoting shooting sports among America's youth began in 1903 when NRA Secretary urged the establishment of rifle clubs at all major colleges, universities, and military academies. NRA formed its Legislative Affairs Division in 1934. While the NRA did not lobby directly at this time, it did mail out legislative facts and analyses to Congress. The program launched in 1960 has resulted in more than 13,000 NRA certified police and security firearms instructors, which is a good thing. They're not all bad guys. NRA continues to be a leader in firearms education, training about 1 million gun owners. 1975, recognizing a critical need for political defense of the Second Amendment, NRA formed the Institute for Legislative Action, or ILA, a lobbying function that is a powerful influence over Congress. As of the end of 2018, the NRA claimed a membership of 5 million. It remains one of the most effective lobbying groups in Congress, despite representing less than 2% of the U.S. population. More recently, the NRA has been plagued by corruption amongst its leaders, and an attempt to file for bankruptcy was rejected. And the New York State is seeking to shut it down over alleged fraud and abuse. Some states have enacted gun regulations, specifically on assault-style weapons, mainly liberal East Coast states and California and Hawaii. And then there's Texas, where the state legislature approved a bill allowing residents to carry concealed, unlicensed, and loaded guns to better defend themselves in public. Governor Abbott signed it. Oh boy, I wish I could show you this. Anyway, how are we doing on time?
About another 15-20 minutes.
Oh,
You got some more time.
all right. Well, let's go through some of the historic moments in gun violence. Anyone remember Charles Whitman? Yeah, he, 1966, he stabbed his wife and mother to death and went to the University of Texas in Austin and shot 3 people. He climbed up the tower observation deck with a high-powered rifle and started blasting away, and he shot 96 people. He was shooting people for 96 minutes before they took him out. Eventually, he was dubbed the Texas Tower Sniper. 16 people in all died. And then there was Brenda Spencer in 1979. Anybody remember her? She was in San Diego. She was a 16-year-old. And she grabbed a gun, went across the street to the elementary school and started shooting people. Killed 2 adults, 16 classmates were injured. And the reason she gave was, I don't like Mondays.
Who does?
And then the San Ysidro massacre on July 18th, 1984, a guy walked into a McDonald's on the Mexican border and fatally shot 21 people, wounded 19. And at that time, it was the worst mass killing. Oh, no. Anybody remember the Brady Handgun Violence Protection Act? Yeah. 1993. It requires a 5-day waiting period before purchasing handguns at gun shops. Allow for background checks. Dovetails with the National Instant Criminal Background Check System that was implemented in 1998. The Supreme Court upheld the law in it should be 19. Okay, yeah. The Supreme Court upheld it before it went into effect. The legislation was a result of a gun attack on President Reagan in 1981. His popular assistant, James Brady, was seriously wounded in the attack. And then there's Gabby Giffords, and we know about that. And 6 people died. I know some of them who survived. Being shot in the head, she had to resign. She's since become an outspoken gun control advocate. She has a major organization that tracks gun violence and proposes solutions. Anybody remember Christina Taylor Greene? She was a 9-year-old. She was ironically born on September 11th, 9/11, 2001. She was killed in the Gifford shooting. Trayvon Martin, 2012, 17-year-old kid walking in a Florida town. George Zimmerman, a neighborhood security advocate, decided his behavior was suspicious and followed him. Altercation ensued. Zimmerman was injured, so he shot and killed Martin. Zimmerman was found not guilty under Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Most shocking was the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in 2012. Adam Lanza killed 26 people, including 26 and 7-year-old students. Before arriving at school, he shot and killed his mother. Afterward, he committed. Noteworthy, 9 families who lost children in the attack won a $73 million judgment in, this would be February of last year, against Remington Firearms, maker of the gun that was used. And also noteworthy, a group of parents recently won a $1 billion civil judgment against ultra-conservative talk show host Alex Jones, who harassed the parents and claimed that Sandy Hook was a hoax. And 2017, guy holed up in the Las Vegas Strip Hotel, broke out the window, had a lot of guns, and started blasting away at a rock concert that was going on down below, and he fired more than 1,000 rounds, killed 60 people, wounding 411. The ensuing panic brought the number of injured to over 800. It's still the worst mass shooting in the U.S. Anybody remember Sarah Palin?
We're trying not to.
Now there's a gun advocate.
That's great. That's just an awful picture.
It is.
Oh, God.
The NRA, because she is such a gun advocate, the NRA gave her a personalized assault-style weapon. Christmas before last, Representative Thomas Massey of
Yes.
Kentucky
Yeah.
sent this Christmas card with the inscription, "Merry Christmas, P.S. Santa, please bring ammo." Classy. Recently re-elected Representative Lawrence Boebert of Colorado said at a conservative meeting in Colorado Springs that Jesus didn't have enough AR-15s to keep his government from killing him. Okay, so the great debate, the Second Amendment to the Constitution states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. The key phrase is a well-regulated militia. Gun advocates consider this their legal right to own and use guns. What is forgotten is that this section of the Constitution was intended for us to defend and protect ourselves from our own government via regulated militias. It was proposed in 1791 by James Madison. But that came to an end. In a 5-4 vote in 2008, the Supreme Court declared, for the first time, the Second Amendment guarantees the right of Americans to keep and bear arms. The court said ownership is an individual right, not connected with military service, but that it can be regulated in some ways. Antonin Scalia noted that Second Amendment protects an individual right to possess a firearm unconnected with service, and to use that firearm for traditionally lawful purposes, such as self-defense within the home. It is not unlimited. People who have long-standing prohibitions against owning firearms, like felons and the mentally ill, are still should be regulated. The Supreme Court ruled in June of 2020 that the Constitution provides a right to carry a gun outside the home. The previous ruling was you can use your gun inside your home to protect yourself. They ruled that you can carry a gun outside the home, issuing a major decision on the meaning of the Second Amendment. The 6-3 ruling was the court's second important decision to keep and bear arms. Ruling applies to the Second Amendment beyond the limits of homeowners' property. Could affect the ability of state and local governments to impose a wider variety of firearm regulations. Proponents of more gun control laws state that the Second Amendment was intended for militias, that with restrictions, gun violence would be reduced, that gun restrictions have always existed, and that a majority of Americans, including gun owners, support new gun regulations. Opponents say that the Second Amendment protects an individual's right to own guns, that guns are needed for self-defense from threats ranging from local criminals to foreign invaders, whatever that means, and that gun ownership deterrents crime rather than causes more crime. After assassinations of Kennedy and his brother and Dr. King, Gun Control Act was passed in 1968 and imposed stricter licensing and regulation on the firearms industry, established new categories of firearms offenses. It prohibited the sale of firearms and ammunition to felons and certain other prohibited, mainly mentally ill persons. Also imposed the first federal jurisdiction over destructive devices, including bombs, mines, grenades, similar devices. I'm glad they got the mines under control. roll.
We needed that.
Can guns be banned or controlled? Australia was shocked in 1996 in Tasmania when a lunatic basically killed 35 people, injured 28, using the gun of choice, the AR-15. Government initiated 2 weapons buybacks and received voluntary weapon surrenders that resulted in the destruction of more than 1 million weapons. Australia has amongst the lowest number of gun deaths in the world last year, 2020, with 1.2 per 100,000 people. Japan has the world's oldest weapons ban, dating from 1685, restricting guns with few exceptions. Hunting and target shooting are tightly controlled through strict licensing. Japan's gun deaths last year were 0.06 per 100,000 residents. In contrast, Honduras had 60 deaths per 100,000 the same year. We've reached the end.
Maybe I was going to say this is a good time to take some questions.
During the pandemic, I know several people that own guns, and their complaint was all the same during the pandemic when basically most of the world shut down. They couldn't get any ammo.
Brian? And then you
Thank
next.
you. Does the term well-regulated militia carry any weight in law anywhere?
As I noted, the Supreme Court said that's not an issue anymore. You're allowed to own a gun. You don't have to be in the militia.
I've been working on this issue since 1992 when my 17-year-old daughter was murdered. And also, one thing that Moms Demand Action and Everytown Survivor, instead of calling it gun control, they're calling it gun safety.
Yeah. It's euphemisms.
I was surprised to see there is no correlation between the growth in population in New York with their low guns. However, in states like Mississippi and Wyoming, where there is low population, their gun deaths are much higher. So I was surprised by that correlation.
It's all about regulation.
It's all about regulation. Somebody else.
Yeah, I just had a comment. I read somewhere recently, and I probably don't have the percentage right, that I'm going to use 50%. It may not be correct, but 50% of American gun manufacturers' products end up in Mexico. So we're contributing to the cartel problem down there too. And I don't understand.
I have found just recently the Mexican Supreme Court say it's up for judicial review that Mexican citizens possibly could sue gun manufacturers. So that could be changing in Mexico with their cartels. Any other questions, Chris?
I understand that in your presentation, you were saying the majority of Americans, in fact, support major gun restrictions, if I understand that.
I don't know about major, but more gun restrictions.
More gun restrictions. And the majority of Americans are in favor of that.
A big majority, like 65, 70%.
It's about 50%.
And so the follow-up question to that is, would that be applicable in each state within the United States, and could action be done at a state level? And is it being done?
Certainly, yeah. California has one of the most strict gun control regulations in the country.
Because there are a number of bills up in the legislature now that are allowing guns to be more and more in schools and school grounds. So watch for those to come out in some of the referendums. You're next.
I was going to add to, I know Colorado has been able to have some gun legislation, and that's certainly a state where you would see some mixed results. But my question is, do you know any place, even in a small community, where people have gotten together and just sort of talked about this issue and come up with some solutions that both sides could agree to? Is there any example of that?
I don't track that stuff, but we can only hope.
It would just
There's
be
a-
inspiring if it was.
There's a town in, I think it's in Alabama, that it's a small town where they passed a regulation that you have to own a gun.
Want to make there.
We had an independence forum, and there will be one for a forum for just independents, not Democrats, not Republicans. And so that's a good place to start talking to the independents and see what they would look like. Thank you.
A, what has Biden done, and B, what is a ghost gun?
Good question. I had to skip over that part, but ghost guns are... Sorry. Okay. Ghost guns, yeah, they're guns that are they're available as parts on the internet, and this is becoming more and more of a problem. I shouldn't have skipped over that part, but rather than guns, there has to be a commercial gun sale has to have a 5-day background check, and the way they get around that is by selling the parts, and parts don't have to have serial numbers on them, so it's readily available. They're trying to clamp down on it. Biden signed some legislation last year that would slow that down, but they continue to find ways around it. So what you do is you buy the individual parts for the gun and you assemble it yourself, and it's unregistered, and that's why they call it a ghost gun. And ghost gun violence is really escalating, especially in California. They figure upwards of half of gun violence that happens in California is the result of the use of ghost guns.
I would think also you would add the manufacturing by the plastic injection machines to that.
3D printing.
3D printing, thank you, is what you're right.
Yes.
That was my question
Okay.
about, is there an increase, much of an increase in that 3D printing?
Gary, another issue that I'm really concerned about is that, I think that police are getting a bad rap, that most of the police are here to serve and to protect. But, I think it's in choosing. And if there's any way that they can enhance, psychological testing or anything like that. I mean, even I was a teacher all my life, and there are people who should not be teaching. But I think it was in the selection process to weed out those who have a potential bias. And, so what would you recommend, to help the police?
That's a real problem. I noted that the number of police who are being charged with murder and manslaughter is going up every year, and the number of police that are arrested for murder and manslaughter is going up every year. And the problem is that if a cop shoots somebody or acts inappropriately, they'll get fired, and they'll go someplace else.
All right. Before you leave, I want to thank you all for being here. To answer Catherine's question, we have 2 programs coming up next month. You can bring those questions to the forefront. Laura Conover, our Pima County attorney, will be here to speak to you about the updates and the events that are going on in the criminal justice system. And there are been some major. Then that's on the 8th. On the 22nd, our sheriff, Chris Nanos, will be here, and he had a 4-point plan. One of those points is exactly that. Please come plan to be here to ask that question again and see what his response are, because we need to make sure we are understanding what our Pima County law enforcement people are doing. Thank you for being here. Please take one of the Biden's accomplishments. Give Chris a big warm thank you for being here.